Let's talk about somebody else who's going to eventually wind up in developmental. And it's probably the match that really had everybody talking. One of Punk's first friends in wrestling is somebody he meets in wrestling school, a natural athlete who has gone on to maybe carve out a different path in professional wrestling, Mr. Colt Cabana. And these days, Colt's legacy is all about wrestling podcasts and pro wrestling tees and what an impression he's made and forever changed the wrestling business. But when he was just a young upstart, he's doing every indie he can with his pal CM Punk, and they're getting a lot of buzz and a lot of attention. And eventually you guys would bring him in for developmental as well and try him as Scotty Goldman, I think. What can you tell us about the relationship of CM Punk and Colt Cabana back then? We know things maybe a little different these days.
Yeah, they apparently are not seeing eye to eye now. Legal issues and kind of wedged itself between the friendship of the two guys. Well, back in the day, as Tony Gurria would say, they're buddies. I mean, they're best friends. It seemed like they're almost joined at the hip. You saw one, sometimes you were sure to see the other. So they had a real good wrestler to wrestler relationship. They both, lived in Chicago. They did the indies together. They spent a lot of time working with each other. I think they helped each other's in-ring game immensely because I've always said you can't get better in the ring consistently working with people that are not as good as you. So you have to have a comparable skill set in the ring with you to get better at your game. And I think both those guys pushed each other well in that regard. And I remember bringing in Colt Cabana. I thought, for some reason, I never have understood this, that Colt Cabana was a very, very good worker. He still is. But it seemed like the thought was, well, somebody thought he was not going to be a great wrestler, not a main event guy on the WWE level, which I totally disagree with. And so they wanted to make him a broadcaster. And quite frankly, I've heard some of his broadcasting work at Ring of Honor. He's very good. Yeah. He's very good. But that was the deal. It was almost like we're going to throw our hands up now. He's not going to be a great wrestler, that story reminds me of Brian Pillman, who we were going to make, after he got his ankle fused, make him a broadcaster in the shades of Jesse Ventura or somebody. And he hated it because his wrestling career, in his mind's eye, was not over. In the reality of the matter, it was over because he can't be as athletic or as he was when he had his feet were good, his ankles were good, and all that stuff. But I think that was the thing about Scotty. He wanted to wrestle. He had unfinished business to do in the ring and wanted to get it done while he was still able to do it, and not start a brand new career as a broadcaster. But I can tell you, whoever had the idea of him being a broadcaster in WE was right on the money because he's really good at verbal skills. And why would you think not? He was one of the first guys to podcast, and he's a good talker, smart kid. He's very interesting to talk to. But I think both those guys are very, very complex in a lot of ways. Somebody might say that both Scotty and Punk were both, were complex guys. I'm not so sure how complex they were. They may have been more just the other side of that. They may have been very simplistic. Treat me right, be honest, be fair, respect me, and you'll get 10 times that in return. And so they had a great relationship. And it's unfortunate now that they don't have that relationship any longer. And I can only hope that for anybody's friendships that last long and you separate for a while, that they can reconcile and move on.